I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 120. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Friday, August 25th, and the Bobcats have another commit. Man, I feel like I've started all the pods this month that way, but they got another one in the bag for 2024. We hinted at it. We talked about it on the last one. Waiting on number 11 ends up being Isaac Norris. Tyler Norris, I'm sorry. Isaac Norris is a receiver currently for the Bobcats out of Lake Travis. Shout out Isaac Norris. But no, Tyler Norris, he's committed, big offensive lineman. We'll talk more about him. Before we get there, though, this episode is sponsored by the Galindo Collective, TGC LLC, thegalindocollective.com. That's GALINDO, galindocollective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. They offer full-service solutions on general business evaluations, but specialize in residential and rental properties, commercial operations, and construction. If you own property and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC_LLC and on Instagram and Facebook at the Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy over there, Rick Galindo, a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad himself, sponsoring us the whole season. Can't thank him enough. We are so close to that season, 8 days away on this pod right now, and TGC will be with us the whole way. Oh, baby, here it comes. But TGC at thegalindocollective.com, GALINDO, galindocollective.com. All right, let's get to these Bobcats. Oh, you know what? Psych. It's another hat plug. Bam! I'm not wearing it, but I got it right here. Check it out. I even got I got the bucket hat here. Let's get them both in the view so you can see the Win Now or Get Bent on them. Bam! I put the hair back because I was going to put on the bucket hat, but it actually doesn't work very well with the headphones. Nothing I could do that the flaps would come over. I even thought, here, I'll try it. You can put it over. What do you think of that? Is this a new look right here? If you're on the YouTube channel, you can see what I'm doing. But there you go. The bucket hats are available. Lots of y'all have been buying them. Can't thank y'all enough for buying them. I think we've sold 11 hats total. Is it 11? It's right here. 11. Somebody bought 2. Shout out to Michael. I'll read the first name. Shout out to Rebecca, Tom, Josh, Luke, Michael, Scott, Adam, Sheridan. Shout out to Sheridan Simon. I've mentioned him before. He's killing everybody on the merch purchases. Thank you to Sheridan. Chris and Arthur. Appreciate all of y'all buying hats. I hope you enjoy them. They should be here before the season gets here. Most of them, I'm looking at them right now, they're in progress, so they'll be getting there. One was bought today, and it's not quite fulfilled, but it will be fulfilled. But check it out, WNOGB.com. Check out those hats. We've got them available. We're going to have more options as well. The Sicko version hat. I think we even loaded another version of the Sicko shirt. You can check that one out. I know that's something the wizard, Zach Webb, he was working on some of those designs, so go check that out. WNOGB.com. Get you a hat before the season starts. Okay, now let's get to these Bobcats. We're going to start with soccer. It's basically the same update as the last one. It's just more awareness that when you're hearing this on Friday, there was a game last night on Thursday. They're hosting UNT. I definitely want to see how that one ends up. In-state rival. Want to see how that shakes out. Bobcats, though, they're 2-0. Going into the UNT game. When you're hearing this, we'll know what their new record is. I'm putting out an audio version of the press conference from Tuesday. It's something I've been doing. If you just watch the YouTube version, go check out the audio version on Apple and Spotify. And I've been uploading the audio from the press conferences or interviews that we do and we put on the YouTube channel. And I'm waiting for that one until tonight for after that soccer game. So when I put out the audio version of the press conference, I can open it. I've been doing like a little opening, just like 3 or 4 minutes. And in that opening, I'll give an update on how that game went. But yeah, so soccer versus UNT, and then they've got UTSA on Sunday in San Antonio. So it's hate weekend, non-conference hate weekend for the Bobcats. Volleyball, same update as Monday because everything is kind of waiting for the weekend. They'll be in the Tennessee Classic this weekend. They're playing Marist College at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So probably by the time you're listening to this, they're in the thick of it against Marist College at 9 a.m. and then they play Tennessee that evening, I think like 5:30. I didn't write down the time right there, but yeah. So they'll be Knoxville, Tennessee for the Bobcats for volleyball. And some cleanup on soccer. Shout out to Josh Brenner over at maroonandgolden.com. Go check out maroonandgolden.com. Get in on those message boards. Yeah, I guess I said PVAMU when I was talking about soccer for that win that they had on Sunday. It was Central Arkansas that they beat. So there you go, a little cleanup there. Got to get on my game. You know, we're into these other sports now. It's that time of year. But you know, football, of course, we've got to talk about football. And I teased it at the very, very top. There's a new commit for Texas State. WT White offensive lineman Tyler Norris. Well, we've talked about Tyler Norris quite a bit. He was one of the 17 visitors for Horses and Ferraris towards the end of July. All of you know what that was, that recruiting push that they did. So this is the 5th commitment from those guys. Let me see. I didn't write it down. Let me see if I can remember. I know it. Michael Silvali, Raylan Adams, Junior Thornton, and Priest Ash. There we go. Those are the 5 from that visited, that committed. There's some other ones. Boise State commit Tice Williams. Still think he's going to commit. Zach Smith, he's an SMU commit. He could flip, although he put out a tweet about Texas State and then deleted it. He put out how he was visiting during the Horses and Ferraris, a picture with him with the Horses and Ferraris, and he deleted it. So and Jay Sean Thompson. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name. Jay Sean, the UTSA commit, he's from Louisiana. He could flip as well. So there's still some guys from that visit that could still commit. I think they're going to start slowing down now that they're at 11, because I was expecting number 11 to commit last week, even before Thursday, before 2 episodes ago. So it seems like now the focus is the season. I mean, obviously we're on to mock week now. This week, fall camp officially ended last week. And I guess I had that wrong. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't misinform anybody. I thought fall camp was 4 weeks. Like it goes into this week. Maybe it started at different times before where it was 4 weeks, or maybe I'm mixing that up with spring ball, where spring ball is a little longer. But yeah, it was just 3 weeks. So it was because they ended fall camp last week, and now it's on to mock week. And then it's game week next week. We're here. Let's go. But so with that in mind, I think they're going to start not totally slowing down on the 2024 class. Obviously, they bring in guys like Director of Recruiting Randy Martinez, some off-the-field coaching staff guys who can still handle recruiting and stay in contact with a lot of these targets that they're still after throughout the season. But I think now they're starting to slow it down just a little bit. 247 Sports did update the class, though. I know I talked about that before. You know, before I get to that, let's talk a little bit more about Norris. Because 6'4", 290 pounds, first offensive lineman for this class. That was one position I looked at that I thought they really needed. I mean, this class itself, it's really just missing like a running back and a tight end and some special teams guys. They've done a good job of spreading it out. Obviously, the big focus on receivers and defensive backs. But besides that, kind of just hitting a lot of needs across the board. But 247 Sports did update the Bobcats 2024 class. I'm going to pull it up. They updated it. So now, last time we were talking about it, only 3 had ratings. Now 10 of the 11 have ratings. And the only one that doesn't is the brand new guy, Norris. So they went back and they updated everybody. Even after all the updates, Kylan Evans, still number 1, Frisco Emerson wide receiver. There he is at the top. Right below him, Michael Silvali, Clear Springs linebacker. I just listened to a really good interview with Michael Silvali from Greg Powers over at Dave Campbell's. It's on YouTube. I'm sure if you type in Michael Savali, Greg Powers, Dave Campbell's, it'll pop up. But they just released that. Greg Powers went over to Clear Springs High School and talked to him, and he talked a little bit about the Bobcats. So go check that one out. I should probably throw that on my Twitter. I'll do that later. But yeah, Kylan Evans is an 86. You know, with the 3-star rating, it's in the 80s. Once you get to the 90s, then we're talking bigger. But so he has an 86. Savali is an 85. Raylan Adams, who got a few tied at 84, and Raylan Adams is the next one up. Newton DB, plays both ways at Newton, plays receiver and defensive back. He's at 84, 3-star. Carson Williams got a rating. He had a rating. He had one before because it was Evans, Williams, and Brad Jackson had the ratings. So Carson Williams, still a 3-star. He's the corner out of Westfield. PJ Hatter's former teammate. Brad Jackson, the very first commit back towards the end of June. He still has that 3-star rating, 84 overall on 247. Jordan Martin, I thought he would have a higher rating. They gave him an 84, 3-star. He's a really good receiver at a Kimball up in the Dallas area. Norris, the guy who just committed, also a Dallas area prospect. They've been working hard on Dallas. I mentioned Randy Martinez earlier. He's from Duncanville. But yeah, I just pulled up Jordan Martin's offers real quick to remind myself. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't have a higher rating. I mean, he's got Tulsa, Wyoming, Toledo, San Diego State, Ole Miss. That's where I should have started. He has Ole Miss, Sam Houston State, North Texas, Incarnate Word, Boston College, Arkansas State, Arizona State, Louisiana Monroe, Grambling State, Illinois State. Jordan Martin has a pretty good list of offers. And I don't put a whole lot into the star ratings per se. I'm not like, oh, he's a 3-star. That must be a really good prospect. I look at their offers and I look at the huddle. And when I look at those offers and I look at Jordan Martin's huddle, I'm like, that's a high-end 3-star in my book. But I don't do these ratings. You know, it's hard for 247 Sports to evaluate every high school football player in the country, high school and basketball. I'm pretty sure they do basketball as well. I know Rivals does. So not knocking them or anything on this rating, but I thought Jordan Martin would have been higher, and I thought the next guy as well, Jeremy Jackson Jr., would have been higher. Waxahachie prospect. Some of you don't like the way I say that. Hopefully I didn't send any shivers down some spines out there the way I pronounce it. They also gave him an 84. And he's the edge player. Him and Priest Ash, the other defensive lineman, only 2 defensive linemen out of the 11. Both of them have that 84 rating. And then below them, 283 ratings for Junior Thornton, receiver out of La Vega, and Christopher Jones. He's a receiver out of Westbury, but again, he's coming in as a corner for the Bobcats. Then at the very end down there, Tyler Norris, offensive lineman. No rating yet. Imagine he'll get a rating, especially when you look at those offers that I was saying earlier. I mentioned Memphis, UNLV, La Tech, Sam Houston, Incarnate Word. Those were the 5 schools he actually had in his top 6, along with Texas State, not too long ago. So he decided to choose the Bobcats out of those ones. But yeah, so 2024, 11 players right now. Even when I guess if I were to pick some positions of need, I'd say more offensive linemen, just because it never hurts to bring in as many O linemen as you want. I think they've done a good job at getting receivers and defensive backs. I've mentioned running back is something that they should probably shore up, although they have a good group of running backs. Even with Lincoln Perry and Josh Berry being out for the season, they still have 5 running backs that I'm pretty confident in. But Calvin Hill will be leaving. I'd have to go look to see if there's any other seniors or guys who are potentially on their way out. And you never know with how many guys are in that position. What if somebody decides, hey, I want to get some more playing time somewhere else? So I think getting some running backs would be nice. They've got a good group of tight ends, even though they don't have a tight end yet for this class. Would probably a good idea to get one eventually, but not yet. I guess it's I like where they're at that position, especially this season. When I look at Connor Fox, I think Connor Fox is pretty special tight end. When I look at him, it's they were holding him back in the spring because he was still coming back from injury. But man, he's looking sharp. He looks big, looks terrific out there. Same with Jake Simpson, the freshman coming in. Devin, the SMU prospect. What's his name? The tight end that's coming in from SMU. Simon Gonzalez. There we go. Simon Gonzalez coming in. He's looking big as well. He looks like a big blocker out there for them. They've even got a young guy, Caleb Godfrey, at tight end. So maybe they don't need a ton of tight ends right now, but that'd be good to just shore up this class a little bit more. But I'm loving the way 2024, that class is looking. I mean, even on the 247 rankings for the classes right now, they're, what was it, fourth? Yeah, fourth in the rankings in the Sun Belt after they got some of those guys rated. So, I mean, right now they're number one for 2023 for all the transfers they brought in the 53-man classes. It's top in the Sun Belt. So the fact that they have the top Sun Belt class for 2023 and they're already number 4 for 2024, these guys, they're really recruiting. I mean, we're talking 53 scholarship guys they signed. There were a few other guys that committed that didn't end up coming. Derek Brown even signed. What was the player from Oklahoma? Cedric Roberts. I think that's the right name. Cedric Roberts, the defensive lineman from Oklahoma, didn't end up making it. So, I mean, that's 55 guys to commit right there. And then you have 11 commitments for this class. That's 66 commitments for GJ Kinney and this staff since December. And it's August. 66 commitments from scholarship caliber athletes. I'm impressed. I love recruiting. I talk a lot about recruiting. It's where I cut my teeth with these rival sites. And then with Scout, which was then bought by 247. So it's not technically 247. I don't ever claim that. But it was Scout, which was owned by Fox, and 247 Sports, which is owned by CBS. And 247 bought Scout. That's why if you ever go on 247 and you see Bobcat Illustrated still at the top, they have the rights to that, but don't do anything with it. I've asked them about it plenty. But yeah, and so when you look at some of those with the way it's come about with this class, it's really impressive to get that many commitments in just under a year, to be at 66 total guys. I mean, you know, granted, I'm talking about 2 that they lost. So with Derek Brown and Cedric Roberts. But yeah, 2023, that class wasn't even done. I hinted about that on the last episode as well, talking about how there's one more defensive guy that they're bringing in that we didn't know where he was. Defensive lineman is what we had heard. And we found out on the day the pod came out that evening. It was Chance Main, Colorado transfer. Chance Main, he's going into his, it looks, 7th year. It's looking like, or 6th year, I'm sorry. He started out his career at Independence Community College as a 195-pound player at Independence. That's what I watched an interview with him on YouTube when he was at Colorado talking about he got to Independence. He was 195 pounds. Was even featured on that Last Chance U show a little bit. So he was on that infamous team up there. And then he transferred to Incarnate Word, played a couple years there, entered the transfer portal, but he had a torn labrum. So he didn't play at all 2021. So yeah, I guess now that I'm mapping it out, it's definitely not his 7th year. But he ended up transferring to Colorado, played there last year, got in all 12 games, never started, but got 28 tackles, a couple for a loss. He was definitely in the mix there. And then Deion Sanders comes to Colorado. It says he's bringing in his own luggage. And so he got rid of a lot of players that were already there, bringing in 70 guys for this year. I mean, that's the thing, is we talk about the 53 for GJ Kinney. It's at least second. I'm pretty sure it's number 2 in the country for biggest, but it's behind Colorado. And he got rid of a lot of guys that were there. I have a feeling Alex Harkey may have been one of them, another transfer offensive lineman getting in there at tackle. He may have been one of those, but Chance Main wasn't. Deion Sanders decided to keep him on staff. Wasn't one of the guys that they shoot off. He was there all summer. He's doing workouts. Colorado's even posting videos of him doing workouts. He did an interview for, it looks like, some documentary that is being made, probably because Deion Sanders is there. They posted a clip of it on YouTube. And in that one, the guy interviewing him even asks him, "Hey, we hear you're the strongest guy on the team." Ask him questions about that. You can see some of the videos that Colorado posts about him doing power cleans, and the whole team's around him cheering, going wild. And so he was definitely a part of this team. He was in the mix. And it's fascinating that fall camp ends and boom, here comes Chance Main. coming in through the door. It's, you know, I found out on Tuesday, not during the press conference when DJ Kinney was talking, but afterwards, that with Derek Brown leaving, that opened up a scholarship, which made that available for Chance Main. I don't know. I don't know if he was going through fall camp or what exactly happened up there, but he was still able to come to the Bobcats, it's pretty wild. I don't think I've ever seen someone added on mock week. You know, I didn't practice at all in fall camp. You know, I guess the one time I can think about is like Damian Williams. A few years back, remember him, the quarterback, he grad transferred in, but he didn't finish taking the GRE, which is the test you need to take for graduate school. So he didn't practice at all fall camp until he did that, and he didn't jump in until about 2 weeks before the season. But he transferred in well before fall camp. This is a different deal where Chance Main is coming in the weekend classes start to get in there just under the gun. But it's a pretty good player they're adding too. I mean, he's got size. I was just saying earlier, he was 195 at Independence. It's not that anymore. Much bigger, 240, 250, 260. Let me see. I tried to pull up the Colorado bio, and they had already deleted it, and it gave me the 404. It's always funny when I see the 404 when I'm trying to look up some of these guys. Here we go. Here's Chance Main. 6'4", 270 is what he's listed at, out of Cherryville, Kansas. How about that? Kansas guy. All this take back Texas talk, and they go get a Kansas guy last minute. But yeah, he's a big player at 270 now, starting out his career at 195. And in that same video that I was talking about, where I'm not exactly sure what it was, but like a clip from a documentary that they're doing or something. Because I only say that because the guy interviewing mentions a documentary, how Chance Main is now on 2 documentaries. He was at one at Independence, and now he's at one for Colorado. And he credits Brett Huth at Incarnate Word for transforming his body, from taking him from that skinny kid that played defensive end, but also played tight end, was pretty good tight end at Kansas too, from what I was looking at, going back on some Chance Main research. But he credits Huth, who's now here as the strength and conditioning coach for Texas State. I've heard a lot of great things about Brett Huth. Somebody I still want to get on the pod. I've brought it up a lot. It's going to happen. I think we're even going to set it up where I'm going to go do it in person. Get the wizard, Zachary Webb, with me. Come out, and maybe we'll do it in the weight room there. I'm not going to try any weights. You know, we don't want to see that. If I get peer pressured, maybe. But we don't need an injury from me. You know, I have pods to do. We can't have me on the IR. But Brett Huth, yeah, he got a lot of credit from Chance Main. And I imagine when Chance Main was looking for his last year of eligibility, he saw that and knew that Brett Huth was a guy that transformed him already. So why not go spend your last year there for a team that you can get in there? I feel like, I mean, it's hard to imagine him walking in, not doing fall camp and starting right away. But I can see maybe around UTSA or Nevada or Jackson State where he's going to really get in the mix, because this is a really good player right here. And he, I mean, even just talking about those defensive linemen, 11 defensive linemen for this class. We'll talk more about the depth of the defensive line, because that does a whole lot. But Chance Main's addition and even when talking to DJ Kinney about Chance Main, he said, it wasn't a guy I coached, but other coaches here had. And they just talk about how great he is, what a great person he is, all the stuff that he brings to the team. So it's a late ad, but I think it's a really good ad. It's a real savvy ad. It's interesting, and they're pretty mad about it. I saw another YouTube video where some of the Colorado fans talking about how he quit on the team 2 weeks before the season, and you know they're pretty salty. So that's a good sign for the Bobcats. When they're salty about losing a guy, that's pretty good. But so 53 for the 2023 class, and now it should be a wrap. We were told it was a wrap at the beginning of August, and then they went and added another one, pulled a fast one on us. Not complaining. Hey, pull all the fast ones you want. But that's 53 total, 19 P5 transfers, including Chance Main, 13 from the FCS level, 7 G5, 7 junior college, and 7 high schoolers. 27 on offense, 26 on defense. Almost right in the middle right there. But on the defensive line, I talked about 11 defensive linemen because when we talked to G.J. Kinney, and like I said, I'm going to put out that press conference audio. You should be able to hear it at the same time as this pod being out. So look for that press conference audio. You can hear G.J. Kinney talk about how he feels the deepest position is wide receiver for this team right now. When looking at all the positions. And I mean, that made me want to go through and look at them all. And I understand why he said that, and he might be right, but I'm right here thinking it's the defensive line when I'm going through that. And also I should note that the press conference, the video of the press conference is available on the Texas State Athletics YouTube channel. So go check that out if you actually want to watch it and see what everybody said. You can actually hear the questions at this time. They had a nice microphone for us on Tuesday. But 11 additions for this defensive line, including Chance Main. Let's go through them all real quick. Devin Wright transferred in from Boise State. Sam Latham from Incarnate Word. Christian Rory from Duke. Terry Webb from Kilgore. Tavian Coleman from Utah State. Jason Gold Jr. from Northwestern. Victor Obi from Baylor. Jalazen Landry from H.M. King, high school prospect. Bryce Cage from Southeastern Louisiana. Khalil Alexander from Coffeyville, and Chance Main. That's the 11 they've added. Just the guys they've brought in brand new on scholarship. Now here's the guys that they also inherited. Jordan Revels. You know who that is. Ben Bell. You know who that is. Myron Warren, a transfer from Texas, interior defensive lineman. I saw them hold him out of practice the other day, though, so he might be a little banged up. Dominique Ratcliffe, a guy who transferred in from Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, was at defensive end. They put a little bit of weight on him, and now he's playing interior. That's the kind of stuff you can do with a four-man front. You're not pigeonholed with just that big old nose tackle in the middle. You can get guys who are a little slender and have them in a gap where they're shading the tackle or the guard and the tackle and the guard, I should say, not the tackle and center. But yeah, Dominique Ratcliffe, he's playing interior this year. Devin Martinez, a guy who was playing linebacker, they've transitioned him to defensive end. I imagine that position switch will be a little bit of take some time to get used to. But I mean, right there, that's 16 guys that I'm pretty sure are on scholarship on the defensive line, ending with Devin Martinez. I know Martinez was a scholarship guy at one point. I'm pretty sure he still is. And even the next guy I'm about to name, he might even be a scholarship guy as well, because there's more defensive linemen looking like walk-on guys. Cam Washington, he's actually been mentioned a lot by defensive coordinator Jonathan Patke and G.J. Kinney as a guy who's gotten in there and made some waves. Gage Patrick, Carson Cleaner, Nathan Herrera, T.J. Sherbu. Sorry if I mispronounce any of those last names, but that's 20 to 21 defensive linemen. And when you're playing four out there, a pair and a spare is 12. So that's another pair, basically, to add to the pair and the spare. I mean, they could rotate 5 different groups and not repeat players on that defensive line. So that's a lot of defensive linemen. And I think when adding Chance Main and was really looking at D-line, and in my head, I'm like, all right, well, where does he fit? Who's gonna start on this defensive line? You know, I mean, you have to think Jordan Revels. You have to think Ben Bell. And then they've mentioned a lot. Jason Gold Jr., pretty sure he's locked in as one of the starting defensive tackles. For that name from Kinney, from Jonathan Patke, as someone who's come in and even been a pleasant surprise is how G.J. Kinney surprised him. He's the Northwestern transfer. They gave him number 10, even on the defensive line, which, matters. It seems like a small thing, but that does matter. It's like Jonathan Patke was talking about Brian Holloway wearing number 0, how it's like it's a badge of honor, him getting to wear number 0, and how he thinks Brian Holloway may even be team captain. I could see that as well. But this defensive line group is very deep. They're deep. And now offensive line, they're pretty deep as well too. They've added 12 offensive linemen. They have 20 there. So I was like, well, maybe that's who I should talk about more than the defensive line as potentially being a deeper group than these receivers. But I don't, especially considering it's 5 positions on the offensive line as opposed to 4 for the defensive line, and they have about the same amount of numbers. It's just more depth for the defensive line. And even when, even looking at these receivers, I mean, they're still really, I'm not saying they're not deep at receiver, and I'm not saying G.J. Kinney is wrong, because you could be talking about how the the abilities of those players, not necessarily, it may even if it's more so top heavy in the defensive line where there's just more volume, more guys in general. The guys who are making things happen at the receiver position might just be a little more increased in his mind. And keep in mind, he's an offensive guy, so could be what he's thinking there. But at receiver, I mean, it's 8 new receivers for this class. Bo Corrales, Sean Shaw, Shadid Ahmed, Cole Wilson, Joey Hobart, Drew Donley, Chris Don Jr., and Langston Anderson. I guess I didn't talk about where they came from. Corrales, SMU, Shaw, Iowa State, Ahmed, Marshall, Cole Wilson, UIW, Hobart, Utah Tech, Donley from Cincinnati, Chris Don Jr., high school guy at Horn High School, and Langston Anderson out of Oklahoma State. That's pretty good 8 that they brought in. I mean, that's when they seem like they're rolling with 4 receivers, 2 slot guys, 2 out wide, like flanker type guys. That could be your first and second unit right there. But they also inherited Ashton Hawkins, Julian Ortega-Jones, Charles Brown. Those 3 guys are pretty terrific players in my mind. I don't know. I hope Charles Brown gets out there and gets a lot of playing time. He's a player I like a lot. Really, really emerged as a deep threat last season, number 13 out there. Even some good highlights of him scoring touchdowns, one of the better touchdowns they've had. Those are the scholarship guys. I'm pretty sure that's 11 guys on scholarship, and now there might be more like Cannon Webb, Isaac Norris, Brandon Treggs, Dylan Rose, Xavier Nolan, Landon Marsh. I know for sure Rhodes and Nolan, those are walk-ons. But just looking at that's 11 scholarship guys at receiver. Feels like I'm missing some, especially when he says it's the deepest, because you would think a pair and a spare, there'd be 12 scholarship guys there. So I understand why, even when you look at the 2024 class, going back to the segment a little earlier, I understand why there is a bit of a focus on receiver, because some of these guys are going to graduate. You know, you're not going to have all of them for the following season. But yeah, that's why I feel like I get why GJ Kinney said that. But I feel like it's defensive line. I look at this D line and I'm impressed. It's exciting. And even going back to, I mentioned the press conference audio again. There'll be audio versions available on Apple and Spotify. But Jonathan Patke, loved what he had to offer. It was great that they brought out all the coordinators each week leading up to it, which was very much appreciated. We got Mac Leftwich, Daniel DePrado, and then Jonathan Patke. But it was great to hear him talk about what his philosophy on defense and why he's a proponent of the 4-2-5 defense. And he talks about how important the defensive line is, and how he said, look at the NFL draft, and they're going after pass rushers. That's at a premium these days. So why not get as many guys as you want? Have all these fresh guys. Where he doesn't want a pair and a spare. He wants 2 pairs and a spare, for keep them fresh, keep them going. So the best way to stop the other team is stopping the other team's quarterback. So he's going out and bringing out these defensive linemen. So my opinion, that's the deepest position group. But again, I'm not out there watching 11-on-11. I get to watch a little bit of practice that they let me. So I'm not saying I know more than GJ Kinney. Definitely not the case. He knows this team way better than me or you or any of us, really. And if he says that about the receivers, he's got to be pretty excited about them. I know in that press conference audio, we got to talk to Drew Donley, asked him if he was the fastest. I even pushed him a little bit, see if he'd tell me the starting quarterback. He wouldn't budge. Smart guy coming in from Cincinnati. He's the guy who's really come along. Kenny even said that somebody who's improved probably the most out of anybody from the beginning of fall camp to now. And again, he was on the left side at wide receiver, not slot, out wide. They switched him to the right side, and apparently it's done wonders for him. And the fact that they gave him the podium treatment, brought him out this past week, tells you that they are really impressed with him. But yeah, they've got some really talented receivers. It's crazy. The one that might be the most talented is one they inherited, Ashton Hawkins. It's great that he's back. It's going to really help. And even doing this prep, when I was going through it, looking at these defensive linemen, receivers, offensive linemen, they're deep everywhere. It's hard for me to find a place of deficiency. Maybe safety a little bit. Safety's the one where I'm like, could be a little bit deeper there. And speaking of safety, Sean Holton in that press conference, that was fantastic from him as well. He even told us that Joey Hobart's nickname is Joe Dirt, which I really appreciate. Going to use that ad nauseum. That's fantastic. I love that he goes by Joe Dirt. Was it Chandler Spates not too long ago? It was going by Tweeter from Varsity Blues. But no, I like that from Joey Hobart. Sean Holt even said he calls him that because he runs dirty routes, which is just makes it even cooler. But they're deep everywhere. It's hard for me to look. Safety, like I said, might be one, corner a little bit as well. Even when you look at that nickel position, that star position that they have, where it was looking a little thin in the spring with Michael Boudin and DeMarquise Hayes. Now it's looking a little bit better with Caleb Coleman. A.J. Edwards seems like he's really getting in there. Caleb Coleman is the West Virginia transfer, and A.J. Edwards, he was here last year, came in from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, I'm pretty sure. But it seems like they're really battling for that spot. You look at linebacker, I've mentioned Brian Holloway and Dan Foster Jr. Seems like they've really solidified that spot. But then they've brought in like Dontavius Burrows. CJ Williams is still here, another Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College guy like AJ Edwards. Dontavius Burrows, who I forgot one. I already know I'm forgetting one. They brought in 2 linebackers as well besides Dan Foster Jr. So obviously deep at the defensive line, like I've been talking about, deep on the offensive line. Talked earlier about tight ends, how deep they are, pretty deep at running back, deep at receiver. Where are they deficient at? You know, I'm trying real hard to not get overly excited about this. I think the offseason optimism is still hitting me real hard. Not quite there, on the cusp of being on game week. But it's hard for me to look at this team and find a deficiency. It's all on paper. 53 new scholarship guys, another 20 or so walk-on guys. So this is a brand new team, but it is deep everywhere. It's deep everywhere, even at quarterback. And that's what's kind of crazy about it. Oh, man, I kind of have something to admit to everybody here. Is I was at practice on Tuesday, just for a little bit, right before the press conference, and it wasn't even a play or anything specific. It was just watching, just how everyone was around each other, and just seeing Malik Hornsby move around out there. You know, just it's. I can't believe it. I've been saying TJ Finley for a long time, basically since they brought him in. But I feel like I'm starting to lean towards Malik Hornsby. I don't know the starter. We don't know the starter. GJ Kinney in that press conference, like I said, you can hear the audio version on the Apple and Spotify. He even says he has a good idea, but he hasn't told anybody publicly. You know, just because they come out and start doesn't mean they're going to start or play the next series or start the next game. Doesn't mean anything. Whoever comes out. I even pressed him like, hey, you know, does that mean you could play 2? He's like, yeah, I could play 2, could play 1, could play 3, could be Wildcat. Who knows? Really playing it close to the vest. Appreciate that. Trying to run a tight ship. So I don't know. They don't know yet, it seems. You have to imagine, because that was on Tuesday, and I'm recording this on Thursday. You have to imagine going into the weekend, they'd tell somebody. Although I can remember myself saying you'd have to imagine they'll have a starting quarterback by media day, and that was over a week ago. So, I mean, I need to stop imagining. But I think why, you know, just seeing the confidence in Malik Hornsby, I really appreciate. And I love the poise of TJ Finley. But just seeing the confidence and how he carries himself. And when I really think about GJ Kinney and Mac Leftwich, and I think about football and how it's trending and where it's going, and I mean, at all levels, from high school to college to pro levels, the running quarterback is trending up. I can sit here and say all day, oh man, I like watching TJ Finley's arm. He's got a real strong arm. He does all these technique things to have this really strong throw. His dad played baseball and coached him up. It's old school thinking. And I think I've brought this up before because it's been on my mind, but it's old school thinking to just look at the quarterback and, you know, discount their mobility. Just who cares if he doesn't move? What's his arm look like? But that's not how the game is anymore. Even when I even mentioned at the pro level, when you look at the quarterbacks that are starting to succeed, the younger quarterbacks, they're running quarterbacks. Offenses that are thriving have that dual threat situation where the game is just, it's changed, it's evolved. And GJ Kinney is definitely not old school. You know, he's a little bit younger than me. Mac Leftwich has got, you know, 6-7 years younger than me at 28 years old. I'm 35, so I'm guessing right at 7 years. He's definitely younger than me. So maybe I'm thinking too old school, and it's this new school look. And you look at the offense last year. That's the other thing. So then I was watching some old Incarnate Word tape, looking at Lindsey Scott, and they want the quarterback to move. And TJ Finley, that's not what he does. He's got a powerful arm. He's a big guy, can clearly see over the line, but it's the mobility is not there. It's just not part of his game. I mean, I'm sure he can move. He's probably faster than me, but that's not faster than Malik Hornsby. And that speed that he brings is dangerous. It's how GJ Kinney keeps describing it. When he talks about Malik Hornsby, he says it's dangerous. And it's just every time I feel like GJ Kinney talks about Malik Hornsby, it's way, way more positives. He's not saying anything negative about TJ Finley, but it's more so just TJ's solid. He's been solid since he got here. He's an experienced grad transfer. Yeah, he wasn't here in the spring, so he's picking up a lot for someone who wasn't here in the spring. When the very first day he was criticizing Malik Hornsby. For a guy who's been here since the spring, he should know more. And that's a challenge. And I read it as like, at the time I read that as, that's a criticism. But that it seems like it was a challenge, because every time I followed up on that about GJ Kinney, he's just like, that was the very first day. He's done so much better. He's looking better. He's doing all these better things. I now looking back on that, the first day of fall camp, it seems like a challenge to me, where he wanted him to hear that. He wanted him to step it up and to focus more on this offense. And it seems more conducive to how these coaches run their offense, how they operate, to have a running quarterback, to have somebody like Malik Hornsby. And I talked about the offensive line earlier and how deep they are on the offensive line. They're the biggest offensive line in the Sun Belt. The starters average 332 pounds. As a unit, they're 313 pounds. That's a big, big offensive line. And to have potentially the fastest quarterback in the Sun Belt, in the country, I don't know, is that hyperbole? That feels hyperbole. So we'll say Sun Belt. Fastest quarterback in the Sun Belt behind the biggest offensive line sounds pretty good. And the more I think about it, I as much as I don't want to flip-flop and I want to stay on my initial opinion, I should say. I don't want to say prediction, because it was just my opinion on who I felt was the guy. Because if I'm predicting right now, if I am predicting and not giving my opinion, just for the reasons I mapped out, the way they run their offense, I would say Malik Hornsby. And I didn't even mention here since the spring. He's got that little bit of extra of running this offense. That's my prediction. After thinking about it, after hearing a lot from you, honestly, reading a lot of feedback, my guy Wide Shut Stunt out there on Twitter, I know I've been DMing him. He's a big Malik proponent. Hopefully I'm not outing you on that thing there. But it's chatting with a lot of y'all. It's chatting with people about what I mentioned on the last episode about how TJ Finley might force some passes, how his lack of mobility might be an issue. And so it's just kind of, it's made me, not necessarily switch, I guess switch, because I still want to see both. I liked that GJ Kinney hinted that both could possibly play, even all three could possibly play. Throw CJ Rogers out there. I'd like to see CJ Rogers, especially CJ Rogers transferring in from Baylor. I'd like to see him go up against his old team. I would. I really, because Kinney has mentioned it's hard to evaluate these guys without live on live. And a game is true live on live. So put them out there. Let's get some real evaluation on all of these guys. But yeah, I have to admit that I'm kind of leaning the other way now. I might be team Malik Hornsby, but mainly because all the reasons I mapped out, and I just think if I'm predicting it, that's how I think these coaches are going to think. The more I talk with them, the more I'm around them and everything, I could see it trending that way. Hopefully, if that is the case, TJ Finley still gets a shot. But same deal if TJ Finley starts. I hope Hornsby still gets a shot. I think that first game let's be honest, guys. Bobcats are underdogs in that game. It's going to take a lot for them to win. Maybe they can catch them underestimating the Bobcats. Very first game, not any film, but it's going to be a tough one for the Bobcats. So you might as well get some evaluation and figure out who the guy is before the next week, the one that's very, very important and near and dear to my heart, UTSA. So we'll see. Maybe both. Maybe both quarterbacks. That'll wrap it up, though. This episode is sponsored by WNOGB.com. Like I said, go get you a hat. Bam. If you're on the YouTube channel, I'm holding it up now. Go check out our hats. Thanks again to everyone who has ordered hats. We're also sponsored by TGC, the Galindo Collective, GALINDO, GalindoCollective.com. Business consultants. Maximize the profitability of your profit by hitting them up at thegalindocollective.com. If you want to sponsor us like TGC, hit us up at WNOGBKEF@gmail.com. It's WNOGBKEFF@gmail.com. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. I mentioned before that I'm trying to consolidate that WNOGB.com merch site and our patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. I want to merge them both into one thing. You won't need a paywall to access the merch, but you will need that $5 a month. You access articles, been posting them, trying to get them out every day. Done so far this week, putting them out. Isaac Norris, he committed yesterday. I had a post about that. I did a little mock week update with a little more in-depth look on some of the quotes about quarterbacks from G.J. Kinney. And then on Monday, I wrote a piece about how I talked about it a little bit on the last pod about how G5 athletes are really benefiting from these spring leagues, these minor league systems from the XFL and USFL. How it's something the NFL should embrace. But so yeah, check that out on our Patreon, patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. So far, we have 49 subscribers on Patreon. I saw before I logged on. Very humbled by that. We just launched it a little bit over a month ago. I started posting articles. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with the Patreon. I definitely didn't want it to be a charity where you give us $5 for the pod. I want the pod to be free. And so it took a week or so before I figured out, oh man, I can turn this into like a blog, basically a website dedicated to writing about the Bobcats behind a paywall. $5 a month too, not too bad if you ask me. We used to charge more when I was at Bobcat Report or Bobcat Illustrated, who I mentioned earlier. Those two sites for Rivals and for 247 now, they were pricier, like $7.99, $8.99 a month. And I've been cranking. I've been wanting a blog so I can just write any day I want to. And I love writing for the Statesman. I wish they'd just give me more to write about the Bobcats. I push them. I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm in San Marcos. I'm trying to do this full time. And so, but you know, things happen with all of that. But I have the Patreon now, so I'm extremely humbled that we have 49 people in there. I think one of them is our producer, Zach Webb, the wizard. I eventually need him to cancel that. We can get him a free login. You know, I guess as the creator of it, I don't have to have a login, but that's how he's been getting in there. So shout out to all my Patreon pals out there for getting in there. Hope y'all are enjoying those articles. If you want more from the Patreon, let me know. I know I've already been cooking up some exclusive stuff like a Zoom hangout. I think once we get to 50, I want to do a Zoom hangout. So maybe if we get to 50 before the season, we can do a preseason Zoom hangout. Just lots of cool stuff. There's also a Discord link in there, exclusive Discord for that. So patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment on our video channel on YouTube and on our audio channels on Apple and Spotify. A lot of you already have. We're getting up there in subscribers, so I really appreciate that. If you're not subscribed, please make sure you do so on audio or video versions. Both versions helps our impressions and everything, especially if you just heard that whole Patreon pitch and you're like, man, I don't want to pay this guy $5 a month, but I still want to support the pod so they don't go away. Boom. That's a good way to help us. Liking, subscribing, commenting, retweeting, all that stuff. Help us grow. We have seen a lot of growth, especially over the last few months, and it's not possible without y'all. It truly is, and I can't thank y'all sickos enough. Y'all humble me, especially the 49 people in our Patreon. that humbles me a lot. It also it amplifies my imposter syndrome that I feel. So now I'm like, okay, I got to write more. I got to do more for this Patreon if people are really going to be paying for that like that. So thank y'all so much for doing that. Thanks again to TGC. Thanks again to my guy Zachary Webb, the wizard over there, always working hard and getting this great content out there. But all right, everybody, season's almost here. We're getting there. You ready, Bobcats? I'm ready over here. All right, win now or get bent.